From the Cronkite studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
Good evening and welcome to this special edition of Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Taylor Freds. Tonight, we're highlighting some of our top government stories and justice stories, from explaining the complexities on the police budget breakdown to showing you how social media has played a vital role in the reactions the public has had toward police.
In the midst of the controversy caused by cell phone video showing Phoenix police officers holding a young African-American couple with their children at gunpoint, the city of Phoenix found itself having to vote for a new budget, which includes millions of dollars for Phoenix police.
Dozens of concerned residents took the opportunity to ask council members to hold off on a vote, demanding the officers involved are fired. Cronkite News reporter Tanaya Williamson was there and tells us what happened inside the chambers. Tanaya?
Well, Gabe, so many people showed up, an overflow room had to be used to accommodate them. And after hours of public testimony, the council made its decision.
And I want to thank Jeff Barton for working on this budget for many months. Yes. Williams? Yes. Waring? Rayado? Yes. The budget passes 7-2.
Have fun trying to sleep tonight, guys.
By a vote of 7-2, the Phoenix City Council approved a new budget Wednesday night, despite objections from residents.
My family was harassed by police back in 2009.
When we approve things like sound cannons and military-grade weapons, it lets the whole force know where the priorities are.
Testimony after testimony recounted difficult and at times deadly interaction with Phoenix police officers. Most of those who spoke at the meeting opposed passing the new budget.
It's stop our work so that he can sit there and say that he has the police back. And guess what? Come election time, the votes come because that's what they remember.
Which includes $721 million for the department.
I don't want anybody in Phoenix also fearing for their life. If they're black, if they're brown, if they're LGBTQ, if they're anything.
Residents are asking for accountability, increased use of body cameras, better training of officers, vetting of recruits, and an improved reporting system for bad behavior. They also called again for the firing of the officers involved in an aggressive encounter with a couple and their children over a shoplifting accusation shown in a cell phone video gone viral.
We need to hold these officers accountable. I'm a licensed professional counselor. If I display unethical behavior at any time, my license is revoked. How come theirs isn't? Why do we keep allowing?
However, despite the passionate pleas to hold off on a vote, the council ultimately gave it the green light. Some council members assuring the public, despite the difficult situation, they hear their concerns.
I know that it's not easy. I know that it's been years in the making, and I just want everyone to know that I'm here to make change.
The vote comes less than a day after thousands of people gathered at a community meeting centered around the May 27th incident. For now, city leaders will only say that the investigations into the actions of the officers continues. In the broadcast center, Tanaya Williamson, Cronkite News.
After a recent incident involving Tempe police officers and Starbucks made national headlines, many are asking why there's been an apparent decline in the public's confidence in law enforcement.
Cronkite News reporter Gabriella Collage spoke with a researcher today whose work shows young adults are front and center when it comes to this issue. Gabriella?
Adam Fine is an assistant professor in the School of Criminology and Criminal Justice at ASU. He, along with other researchers, has just released a new report showing teenagers don't feel as confident in trusting the law enforcement officers. This Tempe Starbucks, located on McKellips and Scottsdale Roads, is where a customer asked a barista that 6 Tempe police officers be removed on the 4th of July. The reason? According to reports, the person felt uncomfortable in their presence. It's an issue Professor Adam Fine knows well.
And what this study uniquely shows is that across the last decade, kids' perceptions of legal authority, like law enforcement and the justice system, have become consistently more and more negative every year.
Law enforcement agencies have recently been making headlines, and not always for the right reasons. Phoenix police officers were caught on cell phone video having an altercation with a young African-American couple back in May that has ignited rallies and protests. Fine says these kinds of images do have an effect on younger adults.
Kids today are growing up in an age where we are having national conversations about policing, about biased policing, about unjust policing, about police relationships with the community. We see social media coverage in general about law enforcement actions, oftentimes very unjust, oftentimes biased, sometimes played out of proportion.
And while agencies like Phoenix PD are taking steps to try and regain the public's trust, Professor Fine says it won't be an easy road.
So this becomes a public safety issue. The more the public does not trust law enforcement, I would say the less safe we actually are as a society.
Professor Fine also says he believes in the change in perception is driven by teens' use of social media, where in recent years they've seen a surge of negative content about policing. In the Broadcast Center, Gabriella Collage, Cronkite News.
Thanks, Tanaya. Tomorrow marks the 75th anniversary of the GI Bill, which provides veterans with funds for education and more. Cronkite News reporter Amanda Slee explains how an Arizona Navy veteran is partially responsible for that legislation.
Ernest McFarland served as Arizona's governor in the 1950s. Before that, he was a U.S. Senator, a Democrat from the Grand Canyon State. But before his life in public office, he enlisted in the Navy during World War I. But severe pneumonia kept him from seeing active duty. He was then honorably discharged. He saw his fellow soldiers coming home and realized there was no support for them. That was something McFarland wanted to change.
He wanted people to have more of an opportunity through education.
John Lewis says that's why his grandfather helped create the GI Bill, which was signed into law in 1944.
He saw what happened to our World War I veterans and how they were treated on Acosta Flats, and that just broke his heart. And he knew, because he was a World War I veteran, that when World War II's over, all these people are coming home from Europe and they're gonna have nothing to do, no jobs. So he thought, hey, why don't we send them to school? And if they don't want to, they've got business loans to start a business, or they can, buy homes.
McFarland was credited with writing the education part of the bill. Delbert Lewis Jr. is also a grandson of Ernest McFarland. He says early on he didn't realize how important his grandfather was.
I kind of had an idea he was really famous and did some really important things, but it was kind of later on in life when I got to ride in a parade with him that I really realized, hey, this guy's big time.
Over time, there has been additions to the GI Bill.
As a veteran, if you wanted to go to Harvard, for instance, you went to Harvard and the GI Bill paid for it. Or if you wanted to go to the normal school here in Arizona, they would pay for that too. Now there's certain caps and restrictions on it.
Veterans can also spread out their benefits.
You are able to give percentages for any dependents, your spouse, your dependents, and you sort of transfer over time periods so that they can go to school during those time periods.
Benefits used to expire after 10 years, but Wanda Wright says Congress changed that in 2017.
Now we have the Forever GI Bill, which never expires. And so those coming out now will have the opportunity to use that, and will be able to use that pretty much for the rest of their lives.
And all of this started with Ernest McFarland's work after World War II.
I personally have had so many medical doctors that I had met, so many professors, both at ASU and U of A, that would say, if it weren't for the GI Bill, I would not be a professor today. And it's just helped many, many people.
A celebration honoring the GI Bill was held in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday. Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, attended the ceremony. She says the GI Bill has been instrumental in helping the lives of American veterans from one war era to the next. Amanda Slee, Cronkite News.
One dentist office in the West Valley opens its doors once a year to veterans in need of care. Cronkite News reporter Kevin Fleischman shows us how this program has been going strong for the last 6 years.
Start applying the topical gel, and we'll give that a minute, and then I'm going to start getting you numb, okay? All right.
On a regular Saturday, Aspen Dental is closed, but today they are treating veterans for free.
What we're doing is basically a patient comes in pain, we would do an extraction, or if they needed to have the nerve removed, we would do that. Basically, that's a single procedure we could do for them, multiple teeth if need be.
While this veteran was getting some work done, his wife Edna Smith shared how grateful she was.
It has to be a blessing to many people because it sure is to us, and there's so many that suffer, I'm sure, like my husband's been suffering.
For this dentist, providing free services is a responsibility.
For the people that put themselves out on the line for us, it means a lot to be able to provide a service for them, and I think it's a great opportunity to do that.
Smith found out about the services on TV and encourages others like her husband to reach out to the VA.
Ask, don't hesitate to ask at VA because they want the VA, they want their veterans to have the best.
In Goodyear, Kevin Fleischman, Cronkite News. Hi.
This was the 6th annual Veterans Clinic for Aspen Dental, and they helped 7 patients.
All of its children had come to the Mother Church of Country Music. It was almost like a badge of honor that you had to bring your culture with you to the table. That's why Bob Wills and his guys brought us Western music. That's why Hank Williams brought the South with him from Honky Tonks. Johnny Cash brought the Black Lamb Dirt of Arkansas. Bill Monroe brought music out of Kentucky bluegrass music. Willie Nelson brought his poetry from Texas. Patsy Cline brought her heartache from Virginia. I mean, it was the most wonderful parade of sons and daughters of America that brought their hearts and their souls and their experiences, and it gave us a great era in country music.
It's been 5 years since the VA hospital in Phoenix made national headlines when reports surfaced saying workers were falsifying records to make it look like veterans were treated quickly, when in fact, some waited months for care. So what's happened to wait times at the VA since then? Cronkite News reporter Julian Parras is live in our Washington bureau with the details.
Today's hearing before the House Veterans Affairs Committee had none of the fireworks of hearings 5 years ago, when the Phoenix VA wait time scandal first broke. That's because VA officials and lawmakers agreed that things, for the most part, are getting better.
We have a lot of work to do still, but we are on a great trajectory, as our veterans have been telling us that they are more than 77% of them are satisfied and they trust us.
Boyd said wait times for many VA services now rival or beat those of private practices. Critical referrals to a specialist that used to take almost 20 days now take 1.4 days, she said, well within the target of 48 hours. Boyd wasn't the only one praising the VA's progress. One senior committee member said the numbers of what the VA has been able to accomplish speaks for themselves.
Last year alone, VA completed more than 1 million more appointments than it had the year before. In many cases, those appointments occurred faster within VA than they would have in the private sector, according to the Journal of the American Medical Association.
But some lawmakers are still skeptical of the numbers.
Why don't you measure wait times from the time the veteran asks for an appointment and the time he or she receives an appointment? That's the only answer I want. Why is it that you don't measure it that way?
An expert from the Government Accountability Office said the problem of wait times has dogged the VA for years. While the agency has clearly made progress, she said, it is an ongoing struggle.
We still are concerned about the reliability of the wait time measures. And I think getting back to the scheduler training, this is something that needs to be ongoing and persistent. It's not a one-time and done.
But witnesses from the VA said they have done the job they are sworn to do, serve their veteran communities in a timely fashion. And they are confident the improvements will continue as they move forward.
We have a trajectory, we have a sense of urgency, we have improvements in our scheduling packages as well as our community care networks.
While things are better, they're not perfect. One lawmaker told of a vet who needed urgent mental health care but was turned away from 2 separate VA clinics. We reached out to veterans groups in Arizona to get their take on how well the VA is doing, but have not heard back. In Washington, Julian Parras, Cronkite News.
Arizona recently passed a law extending the amount of time victims have to take civil action against perpetrators of child sex abuse. They now have up to the age of 30 to seek justice. Cronkite News reporter Jesse Jo Pauley is coming to us live with how one organization hopes to start that healing process even sooner.
Clinical psychologists say having to retell over and over a survivor's story of abuse can re-traumatize the victim. That is exactly what one Phoenix organization is fighting against, as they provide crucial resources to survivors.
To see the light that happens when they come through the center and see them going from empty and darkness to being uplifted, full of joy, knowing they're not alone.
Not alone and on the road, hopefully, to healing and a safe space. Child Help Children's Center of Arizona treats survivors of abuse, neglect, and sexual assault, where kids can receive the help they need all under one roof.
And everybody's here. Law enforcement's here, Department of Child Safety is here, the medical examiner's here. So they only have to tell their story one time. And then the medical exam may happen, but the whole team is watching that interview and staffing the needs of the child.
From playrooms to medical offices, everything is designed to make children feel comfortable and safe. Dr. Shafali Gandhi, Child Help's clinical director, says the primary focus is helping children who have been sexually assaulted as soon as possible.
You want to prevent the onset of PTSD. You want to give them the skills that helps them regulate, that helps them feel safe, that help them feel stable, that help them feel supported, that help them feel connected to the world.
The Arizona Child Help Center opened its doors in 1998, and by 2017, the center was serving over 7,000 clients. It's not easy work, but it is work that is crucial. Center employees also focus on making sure the survivor knows it's not their fault.
Just because they were victimized doesn't stop them in their process, doesn't hinder them from progression or from meeting their goals. And that's one thing we always share with the individuals, that this may have happened. You didn't choose to be a victim, it was thrusted upon you.
Which is one of the reasons why Arizona lawmakers passed HB 2466 in May, allowing victims more time to sue their perpetrators. Umphra says it's a step in the right direction.
And now knowing that they could go forward later on with a civil suit just brings further closure that, hey, we can complete this circle and ensure that they continue on the journey.
Child Help also offers a national child abuse hotline available 24/7, fully staffed with professional crisis counselors. In the broadcast center, Jesse Jopali, Cronkite News.
Arizona ranks in the bottom 5 states in conditions for kids. That's according to the annual Kids Count report released by the Annie E. Casey Foundation. The report looks at 16 areas of children's well-being. Arizona ranks 46 out of the 50 states, but the state is making strides in the areas of health, family, and education. The number of Arizona children without health insurance dropping to 8% in 2017, just a little over the national average. The rate of teen births fell nearly 50% from 2010 to 2017, and the number of 8th graders struggling in math down to 66% in 2017, which was better than the national average. One area the report found causing struggles for kids in Arizona is unstable housing. Cronkite News reporter Jesse Jopali has more on where the state stands with housing affordability.
Arizona kids are facing serious challenges, including keeping a roof over their heads. If a family spends more than 30% of their income on housing, it's considered a warning sign for future problems.
It could also put them at risk for being squeezed out on other necessities. So not being able to buy school supplies, not being able to do after-school activities, not being able to provide full nutrition because the family is spending so much on their housing.
According to the Annie E. Casey Foundation's 2019 Kids Count report, 32% of children in Arizona live in households with the high housing cost burden. That's just over the national average of 31%. Cameron Stevenson of the Arizona Housing Coalition explains why Arizona has lower affordability.
We have laws specifically prohibiting cities and municipalities from creating affordable housing requirements. For example, if a complex is building 100 units, they need to make sure 10 of them are eligible for affordable housing vouchers. We were one of the first states to make that illegal.
The report also shows that given the history of discrimination in housing and employment in Arizona, children of color are more likely to face housing instability. More than 1 in 5 children in Arizona lives in poverty, and that, according to the Kids Count report, is one of the greatest threats to children's success. But Dana Wolf-Neymark says she has hope for a better future, and if individuals want to make changes in Arizona, they should take action.
Find a group that shares your own values. It's much more fun and powerful to work on issues together and not alone.
For Cronkite News, I'm Jessie Jopali reporting.
Last year, Arizona ranked 45th, so we've actually dropped one spot in rankings.
Although the 2020 elections seem far away, the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors is taking steps to try to make the voting process smoother. Today, they approved a series of changes to do just that.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 By a unanimous vote today, the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors passed several proactive measures they hope will help voters during upcoming elections.
That this is going to lead to a stronger, best-in-class elections for us.
Some of the major initiatives approved include a $6.1 million contract for an updated elections management system and creating the position of a full-time director of elections.
$6.1 million to lease a new state-of-the-art system.
After facing scheduling, staffing, and technical issues in past elections, the board created an elections work group to improve voter experience. Board members say they also want to get ahead of the challenges posed by Arizona's surging population.
We've been operating as we were in 1955. So what we're doing today as a board is we're saying we're recognizing that fact. The Maricopa County that the chairman referenced of 300 and some thousand people decades ago is not the Maricopa County of 2019, where we're 4.6 million people. So we have to adapt to that.
The board is also going to be implementing ways to improve communication between the board, the county recorder, and other election leaders. Chairman Gates says apart from these new strategies, they do realize the conversation doesn't stop here.
And also communications, that's very important. Making sure that it's communicated to folks when to vote, where they're going to have the opportunity to vote. So we got a lot of work ahead of us.
Chairman Bill Gates says they will continue working on creating a better voting experience.
Well, members of Congress were playing political hardball in Washington this week, and some of it was even inside the Capitol. The actual hardball took place just about 2 miles away at Nationals Park, where Democrats and Republicans suited up for an annual charity baseball game. A rite of summer in D.C., as Julian Pardas reports from our Washington bureau.
Baseball is said to be America's favorite pastime. It's a time to be with friends and a time to have fun. And for Congress, both sides, Democrat or Republican, the annual congressional baseball game is both. It's America's pastime, the game of summer, a game of inches, and most of all, baseball is a game of tradition.
Tradition is important, and this is a great tradition. One of the great traditions of the United States Congress is this friendly rivalry between the Republicans and Democrats.
One of those traditions is trash talking, and it's no different at the annual congressional baseball game.
Well, it isn't that we're beating the Democrats, we're just beating the team that's not as good as us.
Stanton, playing in his first game as a congressman, talked smack right back at Biggs.
Is Biggs playing over there?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay. Yeah, so I definitely want to outplay my friend Andy Biggs, for sure, yeah.
The game was first played in 1909 and has been played most years since. Despite the partisan nature of the teams, lawmakers say it lets them move beyond party politics of Washington and raise money for charity at the same time.
It's a lot of fun. You get to do something that's good for the community. And again, you get to spend some time outside of the realm of politics to get to know other people, not just based on what they're voting and how they're voting.
Charities include local boys and girls clubs, literacy groups, and a fund for U.S. Capitol Police after 2 were wounded in a shooting 2 years ago during a GOP practice for the game.
You want to be part of a worthy cause, and if we were just out here playing ball, that wouldn't be good enough. But the fact that we're able to help raise money that's going to go to help some people, that really makes it special.
The first game took place in 1909, and for over 100 years, congressional members have participated in this bipartisan event for charity. At Nationals Park, Julian Pardas, Cronkite News.
And despite Congressman Biggs' confidence, Democrats won Wednesday night's game by a score of 14-7, tying the long-running series at 42-42 and 1.
Law enforcement and military personnel have joined forces. Luke Air Force Base and the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office recently adopted a partnership, establishing a new combat arms and marksmanship training facility at MCSO's existing range in Buckeye.
Cronkite News reporter Madeline Haller visited the indoor and outdoor firearm ranges.
Incidents don't occur in perfect environments. Real-world operations and real-world missions means we train in every season, in every inclement weather, whether it's hot, whether it's cold, raining, doesn't matter. This allows them the ability to bring those real-life environmental aspects into their training.
Staff Sergeant Jose Luis Guerra says a base-wide readiness initiative is in place at Luke Air Force Base to ensure all airmen and women are combat ready.
Right now, every week we have 2 M4 classes at our classrooms here at Luke, and then we have a range day, which is on Wednesdays now. We go out there on Wednesdays and fire the M4 carbine.
Previously, airmen and women solely trained at Luke's Combat Arms Training Facility, but that was before a year and a half of negotiation. As of February, the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office opened their firearms range to local military personnel to expand training opportunities.
Their instructors are exposed to a lot, their people are exposed to a lot of scenarios that are not unlike what we experience even in law enforcement.
The response from MCSO regarding this partnership has been promising thus far.
The outlook from the Luke's perspective is that we take care of home, they're taking care of global. So with that in mind, this relationship has no limits.
Many airmen like Sergeant Guerra were under the impression that the MCSO range in Buckeye would replace Luke's indoor facility. The Luke Air Force Base commander announced at a briefing last week that the indoor CADM facility will not be demolished.
Having this indoor facility, they'll be out of the elements, especially when it rains, thunderstorms, that we can still continue training in here.
Sergeant Guerra also says that keeping the indoor facility on base is a helpful resource to have for short-notice deployers, those who will deploy in as little as 24 to 48 hours. The agencies say they'll do a trial run for 1 year to determine the financial impact of the partnership. In Buckeye, Madeline Holler, Cronkite News.
That's it for this special edition of Cronkite News Tonight. Thanks for joining us. For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.